Welcome everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures where ordinary pocket change can turn into extraordinary fortunes. And today we are going to explore the unbelievable story of the 1991 1-cent coin, a penny that under normal circumstances is worth just a single cent but in rare cases with certain minting errors, mistakes, and anomalies, has been valued at up to $9 million, and this staggering figure has made collectors, hobbyists, and treasure hunters alike scour through their coin jars, wallets, and piggy banks in search of one of these elusive treasures. So sit back and let's journey through the story of how something so small could be so valuable and why the errors, flaws, and quirks of minting have turned this penny into a legendary prize. Because when it comes to coins, the tiniest misprint or subtle detail could mean the difference between worthlessness and a life-changing fortune. And the 1991 penny is the perfect example of this incredible reality, for this year produced a number of coins with fascinating anomalies that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, making even the most seasoned collectors widen their eyes in amazement at how much such a coin could fetch in the marketplace. And as we unfold this story, we will look at the nature of minting errors, the different types of mistakes that can occur, the conditions under which the 1991 penny was struck, the characteristics that make it so rare, the historical background of coinage in that era, the market dynamics of how collectors assign value, and the extraordinary possibilities that have combined to create a scenario where a single 1-cent coin can be valued at $9 million. And to truly understand this mystery, we first need to recall how coins are made, because the minting process is both highly technical and prone to small imperfections, beginning with the creation of blanks known as planchets, which are cut from sheets of metal and then pressed with dies that carry the design of the coin. And in 1991 the United States Mint was still producing the familiar Lincoln cent design, featuring the iconic bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in circulation since 1959, but within that seemingly routine production run, certain coins slipped through with errors that today make them legendary. One of the most sought-after categories of errors involves double dies, where the image on the coin appears to be duplicated or shadowed because the die used to strike it was improperly prepared, and collectors who have seen double die obverses or reverses on the 1991 penny know that this can create a stunning visual anomaly where Lincoln's profile may look doubled, or the inscriptions like "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date 1991 appear to have a ghostly echo. And such doubling can dramatically increase the value because it is visible to the naked eye and signals a genuine minting flaw. Then there are off-center strikes which occur when the planchet is not properly aligned within the coining press, leading to coins where part of the design is missing or shifted, sometimes leaving a blank crescent of copper zinc alloy on one edge. And the more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable the coin can be. And in 1991 there were indeed examples of off-center Lincoln cents discovered that stunned collectors and auction houses, some fetching thousands of dollars on their own. But in extreme cases combined with other errors, such coins can skyrocket in value. Then we must consider broad strikes, where the collar that usually holds the coin in place during striking fails to engage, causing the coin to spread wider and flatter than usual, creating a distorted but fascinating version of the penny. And broad strikes from 1991 are another variety that adds to the mystique, as are clipped planchets, where part of the coin appears cut off because of mifed strips during the planchet cutting stage, leading to curved or straight clips that are unmistakably unique. And all of these errors add layers to the collectability of the coin. But the holy grail lies in combinations of such errors where a single coin may feature doubling, off-center striking, and other imperfections, making it an extraordinary anomaly that is valued not just for one mistake but for a rare convergence of several. And it is coins like these that form the backbone of why a 1991 penny could command $9 million, because rarity in coin collecting is everything, and the rarer and more dramatic the error, the higher the value climbs. Now let's not forget about transitional errors, which are coins struck on the wrong metal planchet or using outdated dies from a previous design. And in 1991 there were reports of cents mistakenly struck on dime planchets or other metals not intended for that year, making them lighter, thinner, and different in composition, which adds even more intrigue, because if you hold such a coin it simply feels different, sounds different when dropped, and weighs differently on a scale, and collectors will pay astronomical prices for these kinds of oddities. Now let's imagine a perfect storm where a 1991 penny not only features a double die but is also struck off-center on a wrong planchet with additional striking anomalies. Suddenly you have a one-of-a-kind piece that transcends normal numismatic boundaries and becomes a priceless artifact. And that is where we get into the territory of multimillion-dollar valuations, because the market is driven not just by metal content or face value but by uniqueness, historical intrigue, and collector demand. And speaking of demand, the numismatic community has always been fascinated by Lincoln cents, especially those produced during transitional or error-prone periods. And the early 1990s were indeed such a period when the mint was still adjusting its equipment and processes for zinc-based pennies, which had replaced pure copper back in 1982, and those zinc cores coated with copper were more prone to plating blisters, lamination errors, and weak strikes, leading to a host of collectible flaws. So 1991 became a year where errors abounded and eagle-eyed collectors kept watch for anything unusual. Now when these coins surface at auctions, the bidding wars can be intense, with collectors, investors, and institutions vying for ownership of a piece of numismatic history. And while ordinary examples may only bring a few hundred or a few $1,000s, those legendary, one-of-a-kind error coins can reach into the millions, and in fact there are stories of private sales where a 1991 penny with extraordinary characteristics changed hands for as much as $9 million, shocking even the most experienced dealers. Because such sums are typically reserved for ancient coins or extremely rare gold issues, yet here we are talking about a simple 1-cent piece from the early 1990s, and this highlights the paradox and beauty of coin collecting, where perceived value can vastly outstrip intrinsic value simply because of rarity, historical context, and collector obsession. And what makes the story even more thrilling is that these coins can still be out there, sitting unnoticed in a jar of change or hidden in circulation, waiting to be discovered by a lucky individual who may not even realize at first that they are holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. And that is why coin enthusiasts are so passionate, because the hunt never ends and every pocketful of change carries with it the potential of a life-changing discovery. And as we continue unraveling the details, let's not overlook how condition, or grade, plays a vital role in valuation, because even the most dramatic error loses some of its luster if the coin is heavily worn or damaged, whereas a mint-state error coin, preserved in pristine condition, can command exponentially higher prices. And grading agencies like PCGS or NGC certify such coins, authenticating the error and assigning a grade that cements its marketability. And once slabbed in a protective case with official labeling, these coins become even more sought after. And in the case of the 1991 penny, certified errors in high grades have achieved astonishing results. Now it is important to emphasize that not every error penny from 1991 is worth millions, and most are worth modest premiums. But the allure of the $9 million example lies in its uniqueness, its provenance, and the frenzy it has created in collector circles, because when rumors spread of such astronomical values, it sparks both skepticism and hope, fueling the hunt and pushing more people to check their coins. And while skeptics may dismiss the notion, the reality is that the numismatic market is driven by passion, competition, and a willingness to pay whatever it takes to own something unmatched. So in that sense, the 1991 penny that sold or was valued at $9 million is not just a coin but a symbol of the limitless possibilities hidden within everyday change. And this story also teaches us about the fascinating world of minting, where perfection is the goal yet imperfection is what creates treasures, and how a machine meant to churn out billions of identical coins can inadvertently produce a masterpiece simply by making a mistake, and in a way that mirrors life itself, where flaws and uniqueness can be more valuable than uniformity. So as we reflect on the tale of the 1991 1-cent coin worth $9 million, we see more than just metal. We see history, artistry, chance, and human desire converging into something extraordinary. And this is why coin collecting remains one of the most exciting hobbies in the world. Next, today on this deep dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, where a simple coin that most people would overlook in their pocket change can turn out to be worth millions of dollars. And in this case we are talking about the 1997 1-cent coin, a coin that in some rare circumstances has been reported to reach an astounding value of $6 million, not because of the metal it is made of, not because of its face value, which of course is only a single cent, but because of the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and unusual circumstances that surround it. And in this long journey together we are going to uncover how such a coin, minted in the millions by the United States Mint, could possibly hold such legendary value, what kinds of errors could make it so rare and desirable to collectors, what kinds of minting mishaps might explain its existence, and why collectors are willing to pay so much money to own one of these almost mythical coins. So get ready as we embark on an exploration of minting history, error varieties, numismatic fascination, and the human stories behind the search for hidden treasures. because this 1997 1-cent coin is far more than just a small piece of copper-plated zinc. It is a piece of history, a lesson in precision and imperfection, and an example of how accidents at the mint can create treasures worth fortunes. When we talk about the 1997 penny, we must remember that the composition at that time was primarily copper-plated zinc, a standard that had been introduced in 1982 to reduce costs, replacing the earlier nearly pure copper cents, and the shift in materials had already introduced a new world of possible minting errors, since zinc cores are softer, more reactive, and sometimes problematic in the minting presses, creating more opportunities for plating bubbles, lamination flaws, and incomplete strikes. So when you consider the 1997 cent, you are already looking at a coin that came from an era full of potential for mistakes, and within those mistakes are the seeds of extreme rarity and therefore extreme value. One of the first types of errors that could elevate a 1997 cent to million-dollar status is the double die error, particularly when it affects the obverse where Abraham Lincoln's face and inscriptions like Liberty, the date, and In God We Trust appear, and if the hubbing process where dies are created misaligns even slightly, it can cause strong doubling that is visible to the naked eye, with doubled letters, distorted outlines, or even what looks like ghosting around the portrait, and such. Errors are prized because they are easy to see, dramatic, and rare, with collectors willing to pay enormous sums for examples that show strong and unique doubling, especially if only a few survived the minting process. Another significant error that can occur on a 1997 cent is the off-center strike, where the blank planchet does not align properly in the press and the design is struck only partially on the coin, with the rest missing or blank, and when the off-center strike is dramatic enough, particularly if it still shows the date, it becomes highly desirable. And if you imagine an extremely off-center strike with the 1997 date fully visible, you can begin to understand how the combination of rarity, visibility, and historical importance drives the price to extremes. There are also broad strike errors where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar, spreading wider and flatter than normal, and when combined with partial designs or odd distortions, these pieces become one-of-a-kind anomalies that collectors crave. Then we have the famous wrong planchet errors, which are among the most spectacular and valuable, occurring when a cent is struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime or even a foreign coin planchet, leading to size, weight, and coloration anomalies that immediately stand out to experts. And if a 1997 cent was struck on a dime planchet, for example, with clear 1997 details but in a smaller silver-colored form, that coin would be considered an ultra-rarity worth millions. Since such accidents are extraordinarily rare and highly documented in numismatic circles. Another variety of mistakes involves multiple strikes, where a coin is struck more than once, either flipped, rotated, or partially overlapping, creating doubled images or ghostly multiple portraits of Lincoln, which is both visually striking and extremely uncommon, with the fascination of seeing history literally stamped twice on the same coin making collectors eager to pay incredible sums. Beyond striking errors, plating errors specific to the copper-plated zinc era often produce strange and desirable effects, such as peeling, bubbles, or split plating that reveals the zinc core, and while many of these errors are minor and common, occasionally they manifest in dramatic fashion, such as large blisters covering significant portions of the coin, or peeling that exposes clear patterns. And if such an error occurs on a coin in otherwise mint condition with full luster and the 1997 date sharp and obvious, it might be seen as a remarkable rarity worthy of attention. Another major possibility is transitional errors, where a coin is struck using the wrong composition due to leftover planchets from a previous year or a misfeed, and although the 1997 cent was firmly within the zinc era, it is always possible that a stray copper planchet or experimental composition planchet could have been used, resulting in a coin that weighs differently, sounds differently when dropped, and stands out under expert testing, making it not just a curiosity but an immensely valuable piece of numismatic history, because collectors know transitional errors are some of the most spectacular and historically significant mistakes the mint can make. Beyond these major categories of errors, even smaller anomalies can play a role, such as die cracks that form raised lines across the surface of the coin, die chips that create blobs of extra metal in unusual places like inside letters or on Lincoln's face, cuds where entire sections of the die break away leaving missing areas of design replaced by blank raised metal, and clash marks where dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring ghostly outlines of the reverse onto the obverse or vice versa. And when these features are strong, well placed, and on coins with good eye appeal, they too can become desirable and expensive, especially when combined with the 1997 date. But why would a 1997 penny, with its relatively modern mintage and millions produced, reach a staggering $6 million in value, far more than even some ancient coins or gold rarities? The answer lies in the combination of uniqueness, provenance, and collector demand, because in the numismatic market, the value of an item is not simply based on age or material, but on how rare it is, how desirable its era is, and how many collectors are willing to compete for ownership. And when a coin is truly one of a kind, such as a major wrong planchet or dramatic double die that has no other known counterparts, collectors with deep pockets will bid astronomical sums to secure it. This is where the human side of the story comes into play, as collectors, dealers, and auction houses create an environment where rare coins become trophies, symbols of wealth and knowledge, and the hunt for such pieces becomes almost a legend of its own, with stories circulating about lucky individuals who discovered rare pennies in pocket change, inherited collections, or estate sales, only to realize they were sitting on fortunes. Imagine a person in 1997 receiving a penny in their change from a grocery store, tossing it into a jar, and years later discovering that the odd-looking coin with its misaligned strike or strange coloration was in fact a once-in-a-lifetime rarity worth millions, and you can begin to understand the dreamlike allure of coin collecting, where treasure might literally be in your pocket without you even realizing it. The 1997 cent worth $6 million represents this dream, the idea that even in the modern age, with high-speed presses and careful quality control, mistakes slip through, and those mistakes become the ultimate prize for those who know what to look for. To understand further, we must also consider the role of grading, since professional grading services like PCGS and NGC play a vital role in authenticating, certifying, and encapsulating rare error coins, and when a 1997 cent with an extraordinary error is graded, especially at a high mint state level with strong eye appeal, its legitimacy is cemented, and the trust of collectors allows bidding to reach new heights, often with fierce competition at major auctions. Add to that the publicity factor, where stories of record-breaking sales spread across news outlets and collector forums, inspiring new buyers and investors to seek similar coins, and you have the perfect environment for a 1997 penny to achieve legendary multimillion-dollar valuations. Beyond the technical errors and grading, there is also a cultural and symbolic layer, because the Lincoln cent is one of the most iconic American coins, circulating since 1909, carrying the image of one of the most beloved presidents, and continuing for over a century with various design updates. So owning a rare error from this lineage is not just owning a coin, it is owning a piece of American history, and when that error is so extreme and so rare that only one exists, its symbolic value multiplies alongside its monetary worth. Collectors often describe the thrill of holding such coins as holding history. Last, we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that combines history, minting errors, numismatic intrigue, and the incredible possibility of turning a single cent into a multi-million-dollar treasure, because today we are talking about the 1998 D1 cent coin, a coin that on its surface may look like an ordinary penny, one of the billions that were struck at the Denver Mint in 1998 and used in everyday commerce for decades, but hidden within some of these small copper-plated zinc discs are mistakes and anomalies that transform what should be a virtually worthless object into a coin worth up to $7 million, and this is not just about the face value or the design but about the fascinating combination of minting process errors, double dies, off-center strikes, planchet mistakes, die clashes, and other irregularities that excite collectors, drive up auction prices, and fuel stories of ordinary people discovering life-changing fortunes hiding in their pocket change. So let's unravel how such a humble coin could be valued at such an extraordinary price and what specific mistakes, errors, and circumstances contribute to this value. The 1998 D1 cent coin belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent Series, a design first introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and by 1998 the coinage process was highly mechanized and extremely efficient, yet no matter how advanced the technology, the human element and the mechanical wear and tear of minting machines ensure that errors still occasionally slip through, and those errors, when rare enough, become treasures, because collectors are drawn to imperfections that tell a unique story about how the coin was made. One of the most famous error types is the double die, and on the 1998 D penny, certain double die obverse examples exist where the inscriptions such as "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" or even the date 1998 appear with doubling, as if the image was struck twice but slightly misaligned, creating a shadow-like doubling effect that the naked eye can sometimes catch. And when verified by experts, these double dies can dramatically increase a coin's value, especially when combined with the rarity of the Denver Mint variety. Another factor in the coin's value is planchette errors, because a planchette is the blank piece of metal onto which the design is struck, and sometimes in 1998 D cents, wrong planchette errors occurred where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchette meant for a dime or even a foreign coin, resulting in a coin that is the size or weight of something different. A rarity that collectors pay heavily for since it's an error that could never be replicated intentionally. Then there are off-center strikes, where the dies did not align perfectly with the planchette, leaving part of the design missing or shifted, and while small off-centers are relatively common, dramatic off-center errors where a large portion of the design is missing but still shows the date and mint mark are extremely valuable and are part of the lore that surrounds why some 1998 D pennies are valued at millions. Die clashes also contribute to the uniqueness, because when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchette in between, they leave impressions of each other's design on the opposite die, and when the next coin is struck, those clash marks transfer to the coin itself, creating ghostly outlines of Lincoln's bust on the reverse or parts of the memorial on the obverse, making for a striking and collectible error. Another layer of value comes from misaligned dies where one die is slightly rotated compared to the other, causing the obverse and reverse designs to be off-center relative to each other, which for collectors creates an appealing curiosity. All of these mistakes, when found on a 1998 D penny, take a coin that might otherwise be spent without thought and transform it into something people might fight over at auctions. And because of the huge number of 1998 D pennies struck, hundreds of millions, the few errors that escaped into circulation are like needles in a haystack, making them all the more valuable when discovered. Stories abound of people discovering such coins, perhaps from inherited collections, change jars, or casual discoveries in circulation, and when authenticated by grading services like PCGS or NGC, their value skyrockets, sometimes reaching into the millions if the error is dramatic, unique, and in pristine condition. What makes the figure of $7 million associated with the 1998 D cent so astonishing is that it shows just how far collectors are willing to go for rarity combined with condition, because a coin that has an extraordinary error and is also in mint state condition, meaning it has never been circulated, retains its original luster and sharpness, and looks nearly as fresh as the day it left the Denver Mint in 1998, can ignite bidding wars among wealthy collectors who want the rarest of the rare. Beyond the technical minting errors, there is also the element of transitional designs, because in 1998 the Mint was preparing to introduce a new reverse design for the Lincoln cent in 2009, and although the memorial reverse was still standard in 1998, collectors sometimes find transitional anomalies where dies meant for a different year or prototype design may have been used accidentally, creating coins with mismatched design elements, another category of highly valuable errors. And let's not forget about the role of repunched mint marks, where this D for Denver appears doubled or shifted due to the way mint marks were applied, and although by 1998 most mint marks were applied during the die-making process, certain varieties still exist where a repunching effect appears, and these varieties become highly sought after by collectors who specialize in mint mark anomalies. Taken together, all these potential errors, double dies, wrong planchets, off-center strikes, die clashes, misaligned dies, transitional designs, and repunched mint marks, combine to create a spectrum of possible rarities within the 1998 D cent population, and while most examples are worth only face value, the rarest examples can command millions. Imagine the story of someone finding one in a roll of pennies from the bank, holding onto it for years without realizing its potential, and then discovering that it could pay for a house, a car, or even a lifetime of financial security, because that is the magic of numismatics, the study and collection of coins, where history and error meet to create value far beyond what the mint ever intended. The condition of the coin is absolutely critical to its value, because errors that are worn down by circulation lose some of their appeal, while those preserved in uncirculated condition gain prestige, and when grading companies assign high grades like MS67 or MS68 red, meaning a brilliant red color with nearly flawless surfaces, those coins become dream pieces for collectors. commanding astronomical prices at auctions hosted by firms like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers. The rarity of a particular era variety also matters, because if only one or two examples of a specific 1998 D era exist, then demand far outstrips supply, leading to bidding wars that drive the price into the millions, and that's where the $7 million valuation comes from. It reflects the intersection of extreme rarity, dramatic error, pristine condition, and passionate demand. To fully appreciate why the 1998 D cent has become a legend, we must consider the psychology of collectors, who are not just buying metal but a story, a piece of history, a unique artifact that no one else has, and the thrill of ownership fuels the prices higher, because to hold in your hand a coin that by all rights should not exist, to study the doubled letters, the shifted portrait, the ghostly clash marks, or the misaligned design, is to connect directly with the history of the mint, the mistakes of machines and humans, and the unpredictability of mass production. That connection, combined with the prestige of owning one of the rarest pennies on Earth, transforms the 1998 D cent from pocket change into a $7 million artifact, and it reminds us all that treasure can be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered in an old jar of coins, a cash register, or the spare change you almost gave away. The story of the 1998 D 1 cent coin is not just about money, it is about curiosity, persistence, and the joy of discovery, and it proves that even in a world where billions of identical objects are produced, anomalies will always exist, and those anomalies can change lives. So as we wrap up this exploration into the errors, mistakes, and fascinating possibilities that make the 1998 D penny so valuable, keep in mind that the next time you glance at your change, you might be holding a small copper coin with the potential to be worth millions, and that is the incredible, inspiring, and life-changing story of the 1998 D 1 cent valued at $7 million. A story that continues to capture the imagination of collectors and dreamers alike. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, make sure to stay connected with us for more amazing stories like this, because you never know what piece of history you might discover next.